on this page, and at the very bottom of the statement, it shows the fund balance. The last three rows are probably of the most interest. It shows the ending fund balance, the very bottom, and second to the last was the fund balance at the end of last year, and the column above that is the how the fund balance changed in 2018. So, and we won't go through the actual so much the numbers, but just so you can see how those changes, how that fund balance changed during the years. So. Okay, if you want to turn to page 23, page 23 is, it's a very similar statement to what we just looked at, and instead of the governmental funds, this is the proprietary funds, which are the enterprise funds, and that's the water, sewer, and the liquor store, and those funds are very similar to a private company. Those funds should be able to handle themselves and function without taxpayer dollars. They should be able to operate on charges for the water, sewer, and the liquor store operations. So, and again, I would look at the bottom of the statement, and as you can see, the very bottom is the net position, basically the equity of all of these funds, and just like the last statement, this statement, change in net position would be the, in this case, basically the profit or loss for the year, and it does show the transfers that were made from each fund to different funds. So it's good to see that each of those funds is functioning quite well and transferring funds to other funds. Okay, we're going to jump ahead quite a bit here. In fact, we're going to jump to page 73 toward the back. And page 73 is this is the as part of the audit we have to obtain an understanding of internal controls. That's part of the requirements that we obtain that understanding, and in connection with that, we have a couple findings that we have in connection with that. The first one at the top of page 73 is it's preparation of financial statements and related footnotes. For the most part, we prepare the financial statements, the footnotes, and for the most part this entire report. And in the internal control world, ideally, you would want your management to prepare this report, and pulling out the letters that we issue, ideally, your management would do that. And practically, that's, I think, in all of our city audits. I don't believe any of our city audits do that. And this is a very, very common finding. All of our city audits and most of our financial statement audits have a very similar finding. And it's a cost-benefit issue. If the city were to do that and hire people to do that, you'd really have a redundant process and additional cost. And so that's what you guys depend on us to do, is to prepare this report and that. So the second item is on page 74, and the very top of page 74 is a second internal control finding, and this one is segregation of duties. And what we're talking about here is the having the separation of duties in the city, really in the accounting office, to have separate duties for each of the internal control items that would require those segregation of duties. And again, for most of our city audits. This is a very, very common finding. Again, it's a cost benefit. If the city were to have all of those additional controls in place and additional people to have two sets of eyes on every single, item that really goes through the city, it would be its cost benefit. And what I like to say, it doesn't mean that the city does not have internal controls. The city actually has quite good internal controls. It's just the barometer is the ideal segregation of duties. So, okay, page 75, we have a couple items there, and the top one is it's called audit adjustments. And as part of preparing what we call these government-wide statements, we do have to make a fair amount of audit adjustments, and that's just part of the process to get to to really what we call these government-wide financial statements, which they were the first two statements that we didn't look at, but that does require a fair amount of adjustments that we have to make in order to get to those statements. So the bottom item, bottom half of the page here is one more item, and this is with the Minnesota Legal Compliance Guide, the Minnesota statutes, and it's an out-of-state travel policy. The Minnesota statutes require that all governmental entities have an out-of-state travel policy, and in going through the questionnaire this year, we found out that the city did not have a policy on record. So we have to report that to the city, and the city will, I'm guessing, have a travel policy, and next year likely that finding will disappear. And it's quite the state has a lot of those interesting laws, and there's a lot of questions and a lot of statutes. So that kind of takes care of the run through the report. We do have a separate letter that I think, do you guys all have that? It's communication with those charged with governance. Okay, as part of the audit, we're required to issue this letter. It's communication to those charged with governance, and it's just a handful of items that we want to run through here real quick. At the very bottom of the first page, it's difficulties encountered in performing the audit. We did not have any difficulties in performing our audit. We have to report that. If we did have difficulties, we would have to report that as well. The next page is, the top item there is corrected and uncorrected misstatements. What we're talking about there are the audit adjustments. At the end of the audit, we pass along our audit adjustments to Danielle and the city, and in turn, those adjustments are posted into the city records, which then agree with the audited financial statements. The next item is disagreements with management. We did not have any disagreements with management. We have to report that. If we did, we would have to report that as well. The next item is management representations. At the end of the audit, the city has to sign a management representation letter, and that letter is dated June 27th, and we do have that letter. And the next item, the last item we'll talk about here, is management consultations with other independent accountants, and what this is referring to is we call it opinion shopping. If the city doesn't like the way we are handling an accounting issue or whatever it might be, say a depreciation method, whatever it might be, and the city would contact another accountant and get another opinion, that would be what we call opinion shopping. We're not aware of anything like that, and we do have to report that. So that takes care of a run through the report. If there's any questions about the audit or reports, I would be happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Berkeley? What would be considered difficulties
performing and completing the audit?
That's a
I'm
good,
just asking this.
no, that's a good question, a fair question. I would say if we were looking for information, just to give you an example, we needed information to complete one of our audit procedures and to do work that we were required to do, and we say couldn't get the information, and had to have that information in order to give a clean opinion, and that, I would consider that a difficulty in performing the audit if we, just weren't able to get information is probably the best thing, or the best example that I can think of, but I'm sure there's lots of different things. But really, I think it would be difficulty working with, say, management in getting information and being able to complete our audit procedures.
So I'm taking this that our records were complete for you to check, right?
Yes. Yep, the records were in good order, and we always have audit adjustments. We talked about the adjustments, but the city records are in good order, and so yes, that's the case. Yep.
Any other questions? Hearing none, is there a motion to accept the 2018 audit report from Carlson CPAs?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. Discussion? Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Berkman. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'd also like to thank Don and Danielle for their work here within City Hall to internal control of our city financial situation. Good work they've done. Item number 6 is county garage relocation. We have a few individuals here this evening. We have Mr. Bob Schliemann from Apex Engineering here, and Matt Malone from BHH. And I know there's several county representatives here. Commissioner Johnson's here. Could you introduce the... I'm putting you on the spot here. Could you introduce the county personnel to us?
Maybe.
Or have them introduce themselves?
Is this on? That might work better.
Yeah.
Actually, I believe we have Matt Ivaro, Assistant County Engineer, Chuck Grady, County Engineer from Otter Tail County, Christy Field is our Maintenance Supervisor. You know the Apex Engineering firm, and myself, I'm here for moral support, Mr. Mayor. And then I do want to extend, I didn't stand up during public, but it is a county function. Please, all of you, come to the long-range strategic plan if you're available. It's an open house format. You simply walk in, kind of talk to the different players. If you have questions or whatever, comment on what we're thinking about doing for the next 20, 25 years, something like that. And so please make yourselves, you don't have to be there for an hour and a half. Stop in for 10 minutes, look around. There'll be boards spread around the room, those kinds of things. Just find myself or one of the engineers or something like that, and we'd really enjoy your company in planning our future for Otter Tail County. So with that, I think I'm turning it over. Chuck, are you coming up? Bob's going to take care of this? Okay, Bob's going to take care of this. We're just here to answer
Thank you,
questions.
Mr. Commissioner.
All right, thank you very much, everybody. Mayor, council, staff. This evening, I'm here to talk a little bit about Otter Tail County Truck Facility. I've been involved in this project, kind of the middleman, for lack of a better way to put it. Obviously, working with the county, Matt Malone at BHH, and then along this road, I've also been working with Don and Brian from the city standpoint. Right now, Otter Tail County is looking to do something with their current truck station facility here in Pelican Rapids. Right now, their truck station facility is located right here. It's actually in the southwest corner of 5th Avenue and 3rd Street. They've been looking at some various sites over the last year, I believe it's been. And this evening, we just wanted to come to you folks tonight, present the information to you as the city, staff, council, and mayor, and just get some general feedback on the proposed sites that they've looked at to date to help them move forward. So this information